Well, so welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How did you get into theater?
Oh my goodness, I don't even remember the first time I was on stage. There are pictures that document it.
Yeah.
But I always remember acting in some way, shape, or form. I was very fortunate in the very, very small southeast Nebraska farming town I grew up in. We had a community college and a very vibrant community theater and some really, really great actors and actresses in just this tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. And some of my first memories of theater are being in the basement of the Lutheran church, rehearsing things like Pajama Game, Fiddler on the Roof, and all those good old Rodgers and Hammerstein and Lerner and Lowe musicals. And performing them. We did South Pacific in the middle of February, so I have a very vivid memory of very, very thick pancake makeup. Because I mean, we're all good German farm girls, and very, very pale by February.
So your parents were into this, or no?
No, neither one of my parents act. My dad tells the story. He was a junior high principal for 39 years. Sports person. Drafted by the Cincinnati Cubs to play baseball, but the Navy got him first for Korea. And my dad tells the story of how in high school he was supposed to act in the junior play, and they saw him do that and told him, no thank you for the senior play. So, and my mom just never, she was a clarinet player, homemaker.
Is that where music comes from then? From your mom's
side? Some of it. I was adopted. But my parents, my dad was country music. He played the radio pretty well, and that was about it. But my mom was a musician. Her parents were musicians, and as well as being educators. I come from a long line of educators on both sides. And my parents both made very sure that my sister and I were taken into Lincoln, Nebraska, the next biggest town, about an hour and a half away. We saw Ferrani and Teicher, we saw Victor Borge, we saw the ballet, we saw the symphony, all kinds of musical experiences. And then, of course, they funneled us into the theater.
All this vibrant activity. And I've seen this in small towns like Long Island in the middle of nowhere, and you've got like 200 people trying out for this one play. You know, what?
That is it, exactly. Half the town comes out to do this show. And it's very difficult to cast because for some reason these tiny little towns have all this talent. Who knows where it comes from?
So, what do you do in real life?
In real life, I'm a professor at Sam Houston State University. I'm a musicologist. Historical musicologist. I research opera, musical theater, women composers, so I consider this research.
Research?
I get to pass it off that way. That's how I justify my time in the theater. It's research, especially in musicals. But that's what I do in real life.
History. So why history?
That's a roundabout story. When I was doing my undergraduate work, I was going to be a band director. I had a very influential junior high and high school band director who now runs the music school at the University of Oklahoma. And I was going to be a band director just like Roland Barrett. We were going to do all this. I got into my junior year of undergrad, had to do a presentation for music history class, which we all had to take and we all suffered through. And the professor said, oh, look, Melissa, you're pretty good at this. You might think about being a music history person. Nope, I'm a band director. That lasted for 22 years, and then realized, okay, she was right. And I got my...
So you were a band director then?
So I was a band director for 22 years, mostly in Missouri.
Yes.
And and then took the next 5 years, 2 years of getting my second master's in musicology, and then the next 3.5 years to get my PhD.
Wow. So what were you in high school or in college when you did the band director?
I taught all levels.
All levels.
Yeah, there was one job. I won't name the school, but it was in the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
They're a very successful program now. Not so much while I was there. But I was teaching kindergarten music, 2nd grade, 4th grade, and then 5th through 12th grade band. And helping a little bit out with choir, directing pit orchestras, choreographing the musicals. Everything goes with that.
What do you see in terms of challenges in terms of music education in general? I mean, you must have seen changes over the years.
Oh, there have been so many changes. The biggest one I can see is the style of music and the style of marching. I mean, we're in Texas. Marching band is very big down here. It really wasn't so much up in Nebraska where I grew up and in Missouri where I taught. Not to the point where it was almost a religion as big as the football. I mean, I'm from Nebraska. We grew up, our first words are Go Big Red. But yeah, so the style of music, the style of marching, the style of shows, the emphasis that is put on, you don't need to have any pre-education before you come into the music program. We will teach you what you need to know. I've seen a very, very big decline from when I started teaching in 1989 until my last year. I used to get a lot of, I played piano, I played violin, I was a string person, I've had some voice training. By the time I ended up in the St. Louis area teaching, my last 5 years of teaching, none of the kids had previous training that came into my beginning band program. It's like, oh yeah, my mom took music, my mom took piano, but she quit it after 3 years. She wished she'd gone on. She wants me to be in music. What can I play? And yeah, so I saw a lot of that. Some of it's picked up by the elementary music teachers, the general music teachers. And if you have a really, really good general music teacher, that's more important than what the band director does, what the choir director does, what the orchestra director does later. You've got to get that good, solid foundation. There used to be a piano in every house.
No.
And not so much anymore. I mean, not even the little electronic keyboards that come out. Kids come in, I play the guitar. I've done Guitar Hero.
No, it's not playing guitar.
No, it's not the same thing. And they think that they've played music. And they really haven't. And they find that out relatively quickly. The ones that adjust make it. The ones that don't adjust will hang on for a while, and maybe there's a love for either the teacher or the friendship, the band family, the choir family. If you're a choral person, singing and dancing in the show choirs, which are big in Missouri where I came from. But they may or may not last. And then you get those people who made it through most of the way onto the stages of the community theaters and going on into the Broadway, into the pit orchestras, into the professional and amateur/professional end of it, like what we have here in Conroe.
So, well, I'm thinking music, of course, music education, other than supporting football and things like that, it is, it takes a long time. I mean, not everyone's got the talent. I get it, so we force a lot of people into playing, like violin, viola, whatever. And they're not really into it, but it's obvious that some people have the talent. But are there less people doing that now, or what do you think? What do you see?
That's a very difficult question. It varies by area, and there's a lot that has to do more with economics than with talent or desire. Now, anyone that has the desire to do it is going to find a way. If there's not an economic means for them to do it, that's a problem. The biggest example of that is actually not in the United States. Venezuela or Argentina, I can't remember which one right off the top of my head, but there was an orchestral person who said, I'm not seeing any of these things happening. There's the crime rates escalating. What if I just bought a bunch of string instruments, got kids in off the street, and formed a club? And he did. They did. They are one of the top youth orchestras in the world right now, with a waiting list to get in, and they've expanded, I believe, to at least 2, if not 3 orchestras now. So if where there's a will, there's a way, as in anything. But in the States, I taught for 10 years in a small southeast Missouri school. There was one way into the town, one way out of the town, and when we had the 2 parades a year, nobody got in and out of town, because everything, you're not getting out because the band has to march through and all the tractors go through. And some of those parents were very, I don't want to say poor, but they were on the lower end of the economic scale. but they still made sure that if their student wanted to do music or we only had 4 sports in the school, 2 for the girls, 2 for the boys. No football team, but we marched the band, which was also very telling about what the parents allowed me to do in that school. But those were some of the most supportive people. Some of the best students I've ever had came from that tiny, tiny little southeast Missouri town. And because there was the will, they saw that music was going to be helpful. I still correspond with many of the students from that school today over the 10 years. They find me on Facebook and various and sundry. And they're still saying, oh, yeah, we heard this commercial, and oh my gosh, I can't believe they were playing You Can Call Me Al. I still remember how to play that, and the flag choreography that went with it. So they come back and they say, I haven't gone on in music, but I'm making sure my kids are doing it because of what you gave me in those 6 years I was in your band, I was in your choir.
I was thinking about, just entertainment, and I don't know if it's a small town, suburbia, large town thing, but it seemed that in earlier times that we didn't have entertainment, so you made your own entertainment. Part of that is music, right? And especially in small towns. Now, you see it here too. Their phone is their entertainment, and you get the psychological addiction to the phone. So there's less, I don't know, maybe incentive or reason to invest, say, in music, in improvisation, whatever. It could be wrong, but it just seems that way.
Yeah, I see some of that, and I think that hit the head, or the high point, the peak, when the iPhone first came out. What I'm seeing now is it's coming back the other direction because you can self-publish. You can do all of this. This can go out on the internet. You can stand in your garage, record your band, and release your own record. We have a lot more creativity getting out there, and a lot more, and we cover this in the history classes to the majors and to the non-majors. There's a lot more splintering of music. You can name a piece of music, like where would you classify Taylor Swift at this point? Is she country? Is she pop? Is there an alternative part that comes into that? You get someone like Imogen Heap, who's into the electronica. She's developed gloves that have electrodes on them. And when she touches different surfaces, they play different notes and make different sounds. That would not have been successful prior to the age of YouTube, the iPhone. No one would have known about them. Groups like Straight No Chaser out of the University of Indiana. They were on YouTube. Their YouTube video kicked off, and there it was. They didn't have anything like America's Got Talent back then when they first started, and they've parlayed that into a very successful career. And I could go on just naming.
Oh my goodness.
All of these little things. We wouldn't know about Gangnam Style without YouTube.
No.
Now, whether that's good or bad is debatable. We'll just leave that one right there.
Well, I'm a generation of MTV.
Yes, me too.
And when MTV first came out, there were all these groups that came out of nowhere, right? And they weren't even that good. Some of them weren't even that good. But because they put this video out there, we started to relate, not just hearing the music, but seeing it. So, again, another form of entertainment. Now, a lot of those groups have gone, I don't know where they're flock of sequels. What are they doing? I don't know.
He's finally cut his hair.
Great.
Yeah, but we had even the groups like Milli Vanilli who were fabricated. They lip-synced. And it was all about the look and not about the sound. And I think that's coming full circle back to your question about education. I think that's where we really get the music education. Kids these days will see that and say, okay, well, I can't do this. Help me. How can I do this? Help me develop this talent. And that's where, by the end of my career in band, that's where I was getting some of those students. It's like, well, I saw so-and-so on this YouTube video. Can you teach me to play the saxophone so I can sound like that? Can you teach me to play jazz? Like 2 jazz bands at the last school I was at. Can we play jazz like the people we hear on YouTube, like these videos that are going around? And it's so much easier to teach this now. It used to be we would have to go out and find the records. The Leonard Bernstein Young People's Guide to the Orchestra that came out in the 50s, all of that, we would show that, and that was the only exposure students got. I've got students now coming in to my college classes. Hey, look, I saw this video of such and such an orchestra. This is really cool, and we talked about this in class. Can I use this in my paper? Well, sure, yeah. It's so much easier to go out now and find examples of what we want, and good and bad.
Right.
So I can put up 2 versions of the same song, Fanfare for the Common Man.
Yes.
Which is being played at the start of Mary Poppins now. We can hear a good version of that, and then we can hear maybe a high school band, the questionable character doing it. And that can be a teaching tool. What's good, what's bad.
Right.
The conducting students do a lot of that. How would you, what comments would you give to this ensemble to fix A, B, and C? In the history end of it, we can go through, and historians have a problem with this term, the alternative facts term.
Okay.
We've, AMS, the American Musicological Society, has actually put out an edict that we, as educators, do not want to use this term because we don't want to propagate that term becoming part of the language.
Right.
So when I tell students, well, yes, we used to believe this, but research has come along and now we know this.
Right.
The biggest one of those right now is Felix and Fanny Mendelssohn, brother and sister. Felix Mendelssohn wrote all these things. He said so much music, all this nice stuff. We now, through research, know that Fanny Mendelssohn actually wrote most of it.
Well, and you can discern the difference? Yes.
Yeah, there's hard evidence that she was actually the composer for several things. Felix did compose some of his own music, but a lot of it was Fanny's music that they were putting out under Felix's name. Because even then, at the beginning of the 1800s, mid-1800s, women
they wouldn't
really
accept
couldn't.
that, right?
No, you had
like writers, same way, right?
Exactly. George Sand.
Right? Yes.
All of those writers, same thing. And Felix and her father were both. You can't do this. There's well-documented quotes and letters that say, "Well, yes, you're composing, and yes, your music is very good, but maybe we better keep this under wraps so you don't embarrass the family." And that is the exact term that they used. So we've got all these things that you can find. It makes it easier and harder to research, both. Yes. Because untruths do get out there. If I see it on the internet, it must be so.
Well, I think the old adage, right? If it's written, it's so.
There you
right?
go. We can't do that anymore. No, there's no way. I have, unfortunately, a peer of mine at the University of Kansas who takes great joy in going on Wikipedia and changing the information.
For good or bad?
Bad. Yeah, turning the facts and putting for entertainment.
See if anyone catches it? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's and I tell that story to the students. This is why we don't use Wikipedia. And then I can pull up in about 5 Wikipedia sites, just looking at them randomly, I can find something wrong.
Wow.
And I point that out to the students, and they go, well, and then I change it and make it right.
Yes.
You mean that's how that works? You mean I could go on there and, yes, you could. You won't, but you could.
But you could. Wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, I think that spawns a whole issue about truth, alternate news, fake news, or whatever. Perhaps maybe one of those, that's the greatest skills we can teach others as mentors, is how to try to discern truth from untruth. And sometimes that can be difficult, right?
It's so hard, especially now in the information age when, again, with the phone, click on Google and you're there. You have to really, we talk about in the historical professions, primary sources, secondary sources. You have to really tell the students, okay, find a primary source, find a reliable secondary source. If it's there, then yes, you probably can believe that. If you can't find that in a reliable source, and there are even some historical sources that aren't reliable. Charles Burney, back in the 1800s, wrote very great histories of music in several European countries. Those are reliable first sources. But he also got little things wrong because they just didn't know back then some of the research that we know now. So and discerning is just so hard anymore. You just can't tell.
What instruments do you play?
I'm a woodwind specialist. So clarinet was my primary instrument. I've also performed professionally a lot of pit orchestras on all the saxes, flute piccolo, bassoon, oboe, believe it or not, French horn in public, and a little bit of trumpet. And I can play trombone well enough to get by.
Wow.
Tuba and I don't get along well at all. The mouthpiece is too big. I can't make the lips vibrate slowly enough or something. I played viola for a while because I was the one who could transpose.
Right.
And the conductor of the orchestra in my undergrad was the wife of my clarinet professor.
Okay.
So I kind of got roped into that.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I enjoyed that. And I was one of the people who took piano for 7 years as a youngster. And never played it professionally, but I play well enough that I can play parts for musicals. And I taught choir for many, many years and could plunk out the parts and play simple accompaniments for them. And that's about it.
Well, let's talk about just playing music professionally. What are the challenges for the professional musician these days?
Oh boy, don't get me started on this one. The first challenge is finding a gig.
Yes.
Pit orchestras. Okay, here comes, you're going to hit on one of my sore spots now. The music we use, and again, I'm referring back to Mary Poppins. Yeah. We're using canned music from Mary Poppins. Right. That, in the older days, would have been a job for probably 15, 18, 20 people, plus a conductor. Now you can get someone just click, click, and that's it. Yeah,
and they're for various reasons. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, for various reasons.
You can even see that on Warhorse when they did it in London.
Exactly.
That was a big deal when they switched from a live orchestra to canned music.
Yes.
It was a big deal. You know, Broadway, I know they've got the restrictions on how many, restrictions you have, but, there's only so many places you can do the Broadway.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The musical itself has also changed.
Yes.
If you think about it, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Lerner and Loewe we talked about earlier, full orchestra.
Yes.
All the stuff. The new musicals that are coming out, let's start with Hair.
Right.
Rock band.
Right.
The Green Day. American Idiot. Rock band. Rent.
Right.
Rock band. Even something like Putnam County, 25th Annual Putnam, which I've played as a woodwind doubler. We did it with 5 musicians.
Wow.
Sondheim's one of the last people holding out. Sondheim and Lloyd Webber are still holding on for dear life. But even when I did company, and this has been 7-8 years ago, I think now, I was playing 3 different woodwind books. Which would have been 3 people in the day, and there were probably only 8 other musicians in that pit for a full Sondheim orchestra to do company. Yeah. Right. So even the musicals have channeled that direction. You think about something like Spring Awakening, where the band's on stage. Same thing with Rent for part of it. It's just very interesting how those gigs have slowly started to go away. And then you think about the orchestral gigs. If you're a violin player, that's what you're going for. Right. If you're a clarinetist that wants to play in the classical realm, you can do one of 2 things. You can be a chamber player and a soloist, or you can find yourself an orchestra. How many orchestras can you name?
Or left. Or what you said.
Yeah, or left. Or even the military bands. I had a lot of friends who went the military route. Right. They've cut down the military bands.
They've been cut there too.
Because of funding. There used to be my experience courses in Nebraska at what used to be the SAC Air Force Base in Bellevue. Used to have a full orchestra, or a full band, full jazz band, some who doubled, some who didn't, back and forth. And there were probably 80, 90 musicians, conductor, assistant conductor. Now it's down to a very rudimental jazz band.
Wow. That's incredible.
So,
as a professional musician, what would you tell other aspiring professional musicians?
This is going to sound like a flip answer, but this is what I tell aspiring musicians and aspiring teachers. If there's anything else you can do, do it. Because if you don't have just the burning need to be a musician, and this goes with acting too, if you don't have that burning desire to do this, it's hard. You may not find a teaching position. You may not find an orchestral gig. You're not going to go on Broadway. You're not Sutton Foster.
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to be discovered and when the
Right.
lead gets sick. So if you can do anything else, do it. But if you want to go into it, let me help you get the mentors.
Right.
Get into the right. There's one of the young people in this cast for Mary Poppins has
Right.
come to me and said, I want to go into band directing. Help me. And I'm helping this person, pointing them in the right direction. I've done that with several students. Many of the students I have now that are looking at graduate school or looking to go out to their first jobs, I look at them and say, how much do you really want to do this? What were you willing to do? Are you willing to move across the country? Are you willing to pack up in the middle of December and move from Lawrence, Kansas to Huntsville, Texas for a job?
Middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
10 prison systems. No, nothing.
Close enough to Houston.
It's okay. It's okay.
We're close enough to Houston. It's not real. Believe me, I came from the middle. I know what the middle of nowhere. I grew up there. But yeah, no. Find the mentors. Find the people who can help you. Network. I was very fortunate as a musicologist to have now a former advisor who's become my friend, who knows everybody. He'll deny it, but he does know everybody. And because of this, he's introduced me to everyone. So I have a network of friends of musicians, musicologists, opera singers worldwide. And if I have a question about something, oh yeah, I think that so-and-so at the University of such could answer that question. Or I know so-and-so who's a percussionist in Taiwan. Fofo can answer my question if I have something, if I need information on that. So yeah, that's probably the best advice I could give them. If you really, really want to do this, get your network in place, go out, find people. If you don't know the people you need to find, come somewhere like a community theater and meet people. I've met more people doing this show, doing this gig, stapling shingles on the roof, than I did in my first 4 months in Texas.
Wow.
So, because at the university, at the job, it's right there. Right there in my little box on campus, Ivory Tower, as some people like to call it. Get out there, find what's going on. Do what you love to do. Come out into the theater, even if you're a two-bit musicologist. Do your research. Get people that can help you in this, that, and the other. If you're a band director, find the people who have been there. Ask them questions. I tell the students I have stories about various students that I've had, various situations that I've had, that they're not aware they're going to have to do that. They probably aren't, unless they come from a family of teachers, which some of them do. I've got one student who's come from, I think, 3, maybe even 4 generations of band directors. He knows what he's getting into. Some of these kids don't know what they're going to be up against. And they need to know before they get out there. They're going to be shell-shocked, last a year, and leave the profession. And I don't want to see that.
Oh my goodness.
I don't want to see this profession. Because I do love it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a band director at heart still. And it took me a long time to not introduce myself as band director.
Wow.
And nope, I'm a musicologist now. Dr. Musicologist. But yeah, no, I want to see these kids succeed. And if they're going to do it, I want them to do it right.
Let's talk about networking, because it's so important in almost any industry. And let's just talk about the how do you network? How did you start your network?
Oh boy, starting the networking, meetings, and just knowing, I look at a textbook now. Richard Truscott in the musicology field is somewhere up in here. He's also a very angry man. And if you sit behind him during one of the AMS presentations and hear him question in fluent French exactly what's going on in so-and-so's research, you realize just how frightening some of these textbook writers can be. But then, again, you have something to talk about with, let's say, Peter Burkholder, who's at the University of Indiana now, who also writes the textbooks, who sat down next to me at the AMS meeting in Vancouver last year. So Peter, tell me, what do you see going on in new music education? What's coming up? And since I know Peter now, through Colin, my advisor, I know all the University of Michigan people through my advisor. The University of Kansas has a vast network of all different types of people, including one of my, again, mentors who emails almost bi-weekly with Stephen Schwartz, which is not bad to have if you're in the musical theater. And he will gladly tell you about when he was hit on by Leonard Bernstein during his research and interviews. But no, you've just, and then you've got to be fearless. If I'm a very shy person by nature, and I think there are a lot of teachers, actors, possibly musicians, not the opera singers. They're
No.
they're out there. I don't know any shy retiring opera singers. Wow. Which is nothing against my opera friends. Don't hate me. Most of them could take me in a fight. But no. Most of us are a little bit into ourselves, especially if we research. It's us in the library.
Yes.
And that's about it. You've got to be willing to walk into a place that you've never been into before, in a state that you've lived in for a month and a half.
Right.
And put yourself out there. Introduce yourself to everybody sitting in the area with you.
Right.
Even if you're going to be in the show with them, if you're not going to be in the show with them, find out what they do, find out how they can help you.
Sure.
I know now if I have any questions about how to put something together set-wise, I can go to someone.
Right.
If I have costume questions, there's a whole team of people.
Right.
If I need a contact in Guam,
Right.
I've got a contact in Guam now. Who knew?
I'm doing a gig in Guam.
Help me know where to go. Help.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple that I took care of, actually their cats in Puerto Rico. So I've got contacts there. They want me to come down there. One's an organist. The other's a professional flautist. So I've got a Spanish music connection. I've got a composer connection in Brazil, who happened, his music was last heard at the Rio Olympics.
Wow, yes.
And he also wrote various jingles for, let's say, Coca-Cola, not to name drop, for the Brazilian. I mean, I've got these people everywhere. I know one of the understudies who actually took over, he was the second person to play the role of Elder Cunningham in Book of Mormon from the University of South Dakota, where I did my master's work in musicology. So that's how you network. You find out, and then all of these people also know, if you need to know something about French music, if you need to know about 20th century opera, women in opera, opera history, I'm their resource on that. And I actively tell, this is again, how do I help my students?
Yes.
I tell them, this is what you want to do. You've got me for this resource.
Right.
You've got Dr. Mario Aschauer, who's a fantastic Baroque keyboard player. He's spending the summer in Vienna doing his research in Baroque music. Anything about that, you go to him. Anything you want about classical, romantic era music, you go to our third musicologist on staff, Cheryl Manley. Murphy, and just know these connections. And then I ask them, okay, if you want to resource, let's say ludomusicology, that's the big thing now, it's the study of computer music, music in computer games. You want to study ludomusicology. Who do you know that composes video game music? Some of them can, I think I know a friend of a friend who blah, 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 blah. And I tell them, okay, I've got this connection in Iowa City, Iowa. He's studying to be a lawyer, but he also goes to Comic-Con every year and writes video game music. Here's his name. Email him. Find out what you need to know.
Yes.
And so I can help. I mean, we've got to help these young ones coming up.
Yes.
And then again, that tells them, okay, if the light bulb comes on, I need to know who in my family knows this, or does my mom work with someone who does this, or does my dad know such and such? Many of our students march from Buell Corps. I put this out, and one of the kids raised his hand and said, oh yeah, one of our staff members also plays in the Boston Symphony Orchestra.
Wow. Yes.
That's my resource there. And for anything in that area. So they're learning, and again, like you said, we have to teach them how to do that. And as a teacher, not just as a musicologist, but as a teacher, that's part of my job, to give these students a way to be successful, the information they need to go on, to know how to do all these feelers out and around, and know how to network.
Yeah, it's incredible. No, networking, very important, and I don't know if they know that. Maybe they do, but they do. They're used to doing it in a different way.
Right.
Yes.
And it's Facebook.
But it's not enough.
No.
That's not the same thing. It's just not the same. You talked a little about all the different places around the world. Where have you traveled to so far?
Oh, goodness. I haven't traveled nearly enough.
Oh, well, you can't travel nearly enough. There's no such thing as traveling nearly enough. But where have you been?
Again, this is my mother. Came from a family who believed in being extremely well-read, extremely well-cultured.
Right.
And my dad went along with it because he also knew the importance of it. She made sure that my sister and I knew about everything around and about. I was extremely fortunate when I was 12 years old. I went to London, England.
12?
Yeah. Amsterdam, I'm getting to the good part. Vienna, Austria, Rome, Italy, and we spent 2 weeks in the Holy Land.
Wow.
So at 12 years old, I was exposed to, our bus can't go to Bethlehem today because someone found a bomb under another tour bus. The day before we left the Tel Aviv airport to go home, this is 1976.
Yes.
Hostages were taken.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
And we knew about that much about it. Because, of course, Israeli television didn't.
Right.
Yeah, and we didn't have access, of course, like with the internet back in the 70s. And we got into, I think our connecting flight again went through Amsterdam. And we saw on the TV, all the hostages, blah, blah, blah. We wondered why there was extra security at the airports and why we had seen extra soldiers lining just the general roads in Israel. And we realized, oh my gosh, just for the luck of whatever, that could have been us. Just a different, we're not that far. So I was exposed very early to some of that, which I believe, I don't know if it was a wake-up call, but it really opened my mind to, oh my goodness, there's all this going on that I don't know about, because I grew up in a town of 5,000 people. Then later on, actually for my 21st birthday, my mom and I took a theater tour, joined up at the theater tour, went to London for 2 weeks. And that was fantastic. I got to see Jeremy Irons and Richard III at Stratford-on-Avon. Alan Rickman and the Salon d'Anjou.
Oh, what an awesome talent.
Before Die Hard came out. So nobody knew who he was.
Oh my goodness.
All we knew is that, oh my gosh, there was this really cute guy, gorgeous guy on stage. And oh my gosh, his voice. Oh my gosh. And then the Die Hard movies came out. It's like,
of course.
Wow.
The best villain of the Die Hard series, in my
goodness,
opinion.
yes.
The best
And then
villain, you know. He was an intelligent villain. He wasn't one dimension. Just incredible. I saw my Private Lives in New York, but of course after.
Yes, but just a fantastic actor. What a range!
Yes.
What a range!
But the London scene is, I just love it because they have that culture. You can see it during the weekday. Kids, small kids, so school kids going to the theater, and it's not as expensive. Broadway's gotten so expensive. It's ridiculous,
and it's terrible because everyone. Not just theater people, not just music people. Everyone should go to New York at some point in their life, see a Broadway show, or at least go to Radio City Music Hall and see the Rockettes.
The tour is incredible, yes.
And you've got to be in Times Square after midnight, at least once in your life, because that is an eye-opening experience.
I have one of the most read reviews I have on TripAdvisor is, what would you do if you had a chance to stay in Times Square at a certain time? And we got to be, it was Christmas Day. I've never seen it so quiet. Because the only time Broadway shuts down is Christmas Day. And we were there for Christmas Day from maybe about 11 to 2 in the morning. Times Square was quiet, which is almost never.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and then of course comes back to life again. No, I agree. But just the pricing, I remember Producers, when that first came out, was the first to definitely be over $100 ticket on average. Then, of course, everybody went through. Now it's average maybe $150 with $500 seats for premium seating, and almost everything's premium seating. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. And they do try to make the quality way up there. And of course, you have off-Broadway and off-Broadway. And if you can see the regional theaters, some of them are just as good.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. There was a time where you could make a livelihood at regional theaters.
Yes.
Well, what's that? I mean, we've got this. It's almost this all or nothing. You got to be the big star, or you're doing. It's not like it.
Yeah.
But why is there nothing in between?
I wish I knew more about that. And again, is my area of research. Part of who I've researched is Jacques Offenbach. And he actually had that theater company in Paris back in the 1855. He opened a theater no bigger than the Crighton.
Right.
And it was extremely successful. And then he took his people out and had regional theater going on. Saved the life, provided livelihood for probably 30 or 40 people, plus a full orchestra of musicians at that time. Of course, that's mid-1800s, late 1800s Paris. You get to New York, you get to, even the regional theaters here, and you're right, there aren't nearly as many. You hear about, the Roundhouse?
Okay, yep.
And there are a couple others. There's a good one out in San Francisco. I'm thinking opera company is also in my head.
Okay.
Because usually where you have a good regional theater scene, you also have good regional opera.
Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure does. Main Street Theater has been around. It's professional, and it's been around even before the U.S. was a country.
Exactly.
But there's very few businesses that are like, they have like 45,000 season subscribers. 45,000 season subscribers? Are you kidding?
We would kill for that.
We get 45,000 people there in a year.
That could pay for an entire season.
Absolutely.
Please.
Yeah.
But no.
That's not everywhere, though.
And you get, again, with the regional theater, the regional operas, Houston has a fantastic regional opera. And I call them regional, but they're getting up on that top tier. They commission a lot of new works. They've been extremely supportive of female composers, which a lot of people aren't. The Met, and this absolutely does get back to the regional theater, because I think if we had more diversity in whose plays and musicals got performed, we'd see more of these regional theaters, and they wouldn't be nearly as expensive to buy the rights for a show. But at the Met, this year is the first year since 1902, when Ethel Smythe performed Der Wald, her opera, that a woman composer has had an opera performed at the Met.
115 years?
Yes. Yeah, and when I was doing research on Ethel Smythe, British woman, fantastic, compatriot of Gilbert and Sullivan, but wrote serious opera, studied in Leipzig, had to fight tooth and nail to get through there, and she was one of our first feminists in the music field. But I brought this up to the archivist at the Met, who again, part of my network. And I said, well, John, I can't believe that 1902 would be the last time this happened. Can you double check this for me? And he went through the record and got back to me. It's like, it's been since 1902. And that was 4 years ago. And I'd like to think, and I think he did this. He brought this to the attention of the powers that be at the Met, and they started searching, because it takes about 5 or 6 years. Because you have to book artists and rep out that far. I think that's what got this performance started into the works. That, oh my gosh, we haven't had a female composer on the main stage of the Met. They'd have several little concerts. They do various and sundry chamber art song concerts and all that, where they've had songs by women composers, but not a full-scale opera. And I'd like to think I was part of getting the ball rolling for some of that.
You ever read The Power of Myth?
Power of Myth. I've read parts of it.
It's not a certain that they read it, but it's kind of an interesting. The point that he makes that at a time we were more, I guess, if you feel like power, that the female had the power and was celebrated as such. But at some point it kind of flips and it becomes male centric, having the power, which is we're fast forward. We're in the 21st century now. Women have made a lot of strides, but at the same time, you look at, say, in film, we had plenty of strong female characters, 40s and 30s, and then somewhere along the way, I'm not saying we lost it, but it kind of went away. We had to rediscover. It seemed like that, and now, like I said, things are getting better, but we still have a long way to go.
We really do.
Where do you see we need the most change?
The most change in bringing women.
Yeah, in the arts.
In the arts. Yeah. That again gets back to an interesting. Shame on you for asking a historian. Especially one who studies women in music. Women have actually been behind the scenes more than people think.
Yes.
Again, they've had to put the male face on it.
Yes.
You think about the Paris salons. Even in America, New York, Philadelphia were the two big Bostons, the third big bastion.
Right.
You had behind the scenes, these men were sponsoring everything. It was their wives.
Yes.
Their wives got in there. They found people to come in.
Right.
They did this, and this. Also, there were several composers along the way that did help. Robert Schumann with his wife Clara, extremely supportive. Gustav Mahler at first told his wife Alma Schindler, that Schindler, Mahler. Yeah. Oh, no, you can't compose. But then realized after 3 or 4 years, I was wrong.
Right.
Please put your music up there with mine.
Right.
Felix was behind the thing. We don't talk about him. but no, you're right. I don't know where it really got lost. Going back to Ethel Smythe, she fought tooth and nail. Germaine Taillefer is my main area of study, part of Les Six. 5 men, Germaine. Poulenc, Honegger, Duret. Names we've heard music of. Poulenc especially nowadays. They wanted her to promote herself more. Right. But the times dictated that she hold back. And this is 1900s, 1920s, 1930s Paris. Even into her 50s, she was writing a ton of radio and television music. And for Radio France, probably 40% of what was being played on Radio France was either hers or another one of Les Six. Right. So why was that not touted more? I don't know the answer. She was very reticent about promoting herself. Had some really bad experiences with men, which for PG-13 purposes we won't get into. If you want to talk about why she wrote the song cycle that starts out with a woman really championing herself and then at the end saying, oh yeah, I'll give you the gift of leaving you yesterday, today, or tomorrow. We can talk about that off camera. But no, the music's always been there. The promotion's always been there. The artists have always been there. The men, for some reason, and again it gets to who's writing the history.
Yes.
The Europeans, especially the Germans, Italians, French. Okay, there's a while, you don't hear about Spanish music, hardly ever. You rarely hear about the rich musical scene in Russia. Right. In not just the Romantic era, when you start to hear about Tchaikovsky and Anindra Stravinsky and all of these men. But there was a very rich classical tradition going on there, fueled by the French and Italian musicians. That's why the Russian court spoke French. They were bringing all these people in. You never hear about that. You don't hear about the rich South American tradition until Villalobos and Piazzolla and all of those people. Even the American composers. Charles Ives didn't publish anything until he was late 50s, 60s. Because he was an insurance salesman and I've got a day job and my music isn't out there. And he'd had a bad experience with critics early in his career. And now we tout him as one of the best. But a lot of these men were mentored by Nadia Boulanger, French composer and conductor, Copland, Piazzolla, Bernstein, almost anyone you can name in a 20th century musician went through Nadia Boulanger in Paris. Wow. And her younger sister Lily was the better pianist and composer, died in her early 20s. And I think that pushed Nadia into, again, as a teacher, I've got to help foster this creativity in all of these new musicians. They need to come to me. And she sought out female composers, saying, listen, you've got to write, you've got to put yourself out there. And they wouldn't. She tried, but they just didn't. Right. And it's frustrating. Again, as someone who studies women in music, it's frustrating to see how we have all this amazing music out there. Joan Tower now. Amy Beach. There are others I can't think of off the top of my head. Fantastic opera composers, also in female ranks, who aren't getting the airtime, the play that they should. Their music's amazing, but they're not getting out there. Right. And they're trying, they're struggling. But there's just been this patriarchal society for such a long time in the arts that if one breaks through, we can't have that. She's a unicorn. Yeah. And it's extremely frustrating. Yeah, and you have to be, I think you have to have a good presence that way, but then again, it's kind of a catch-22, chicken and the egg. How are you going to put yourself up there?
Yes.
Prime example, Chris Thiele taking over Garrison Keillor's role on Prairie Home Companion. He had close to 1 million followers, I think, and that's how Garrison Keillor noticed him.
Right.
But the way he got there is he's an amazing mandolin player and singer and can cover and sing any style of music on this tiny little mandolin.
Right.
So you've got to have something that can put you out there. And again, I think that goes back to your networking. Who do you know? And anymore, it's not knowing a producer or the head of a company or Simon Cowell.
No.
For whatever that
Right.
is. Yeah. It's getting a brand out there, doing what you do and doing it well.
Yes.
And then the audience has to want what you do.
Yes. Whatever that magic
Whatever that is.
Combination of the style of music or whatever that resonates in you.
Exactly.
Whatever that is.
Exactly.
Je ne sais quoi. I don't know.
Who knows? And again, you might be ahead of your time, you might be behind your time. And through the ages, there have been composers that we consider great now. Bach was considered the third-rate composer in his day.
Yeah.
They hired him because they couldn't get the first two people that they wanted for his job. That's well documented.
Right.
And now we don't know the other two people. We know Bach.
Right. Yes.
And so you never know of today's, and again, this goes back to a historical dilemma for those of us who study 20th century music. Who's the big composer nowadays?
Well, we can talk about the one who just won the Nobel Prize. Are you kidding me?
Bob Dylan aside.
What is he saying? I can't understand.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Hey,
he couldn't believe it either, which is why he didn't answer his phone. He's like, no, they're not calling me. I can't. But yeah, no, and we won't know. What if this is going to last?
Yes,
we have no idea.
What is your favorite type of music?
Oh boy.
Guilty pleasure. What is your favorite style of music?
Gosh, that's like asking my favorite child or something. I don't know.
It doesn't have to be the favorite, but
I listen to a lot of things. It's easier to say what I don't listen to.
Okay, what don't you listen to?
Country music.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that old style, new style?
And again, I'm going to get extremely specific on this. I love bluegrass because it's complex.
Yes.
I love Cajun, I love Zydeco. Complex music. Very complex. Seems simple on the surface, but you dig into it and it's totally complex. My dad was a Johnny Cash fan.
Yes.
Hank Williams Jr. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Grandma, you too. I know this is, no, I can't do it. Patsy Cline, I can't do it.
Really?
I can't do it. And I don't know what it is about the music that turns me off. The other thing, which is going to sound really strange given what we've just talked about, is grand opera.
What?
I don't listen to it as something I would turn on and just listen to in the car.
Right.
If I have to listen to it, I will, and I'll pick it apart.
Yeah.
And there are certain arias which, again, I will pull out of an opera and say, yeah, that's fantastic, and I'll listen to that. There are certain arias I'll say, okay, I've got to do this one again. Hit the play button in the history class. Here it comes, people.
But was there a time that you enjoyed
opera?
Yeah.
Oh, heck no.
Never.
Never. In fact, and this goes back to the undergrad again.
Right.
I thought, well, my paper for that class was on Andrew Lloyd Webber, tracing leitmotifs through Phantom of the Opera, Starlight Express, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and Cats. Because that was the big stuff out at that time. And I had to go into Wagner. And it's like, okay, I went up to the teacher, do I have to play into Wagner for this? Please tell me I don't have to mention even the man's name for this. I'm not going into the ring cycle. I'm not, 10 hours, all of that. Yeah, I never liked opera. My vocalist friends kind of looked at me and it's like, okay, well, but there's so much of this, and this in opera. I said, yeah, I got that in my musical theater. I just can't. I just can't. And I've gotten to the point where, yeah, I appreciate it. And again, this is what I study. I guess that's karma coming back to bite me. It's because of what I've said over the years about it. So I'm wondering how country music is going to come back and kick me at some point. That almost came back to kick me in grad school when I almost had to be a grad assistant for the history of country music course online.
Okay.
But I love jazz.
Really?
I love jazz, and that gets back into the bluegrass part of it. There are certain modern band and orchestral composers that I will listen to everything they put out there. Bernstein is one of them. Copeland is another. Ives is a third. And even then, there's just some of it that's like, oh, that's not one of his better... Of the more modern composers, I love minimalist music. A lot of people, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. I love Philip Glass. I love John Adams, Steve Reich. My first master's thesis, it wasn't a dissertation. It was very short. It was a lecture recital. Steve Reich's New York Counterpoint, which is written for solo clarinet plus 11 clarinet parts. Well, 11 total clarinet parts. It's 11 minutes long, and most of it's for 11 minutes. Literally. And I love this piece. I love it. Richard Stoltzman, the man it was written for, has signed my copy of the score. I love this piece. And we even talked about, well, how did you record this? How did you do that? And then Glassworks, that's such a great album. People listen to it and go, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. So yeah, that's one of those things that I have to kind of defend myself on. But yeah, that's, like I said, that it's easier. And of course, pop, rock. The presets on my radio station, or on my car radio station right now, are NPR and the oldies rock station. Gotta have both of those. So yeah, if I had to choose one thing to listen to, it'd be the oldies rock. Which even now, my high school music of the 80s is oldies rock. Which hurts.
I know, it's oldies rock. That's what we grew up on. It's like,
no, I'm not that old yet. Yeah. And then I get into class, it's like, okay, I make a Spinal Tap reference. What's Spinal Tap?
They don't.
No, you can't. Your assignment, go home and watch Spinal Tap. Now, it's on YouTube.
Well, even this show. We did the parade. Who are the people that are yelling the most? The parents, because they grew up on it. The kids don't even know what this is yet. Until the movie comes out in a year. But
and they say, who's the Dick Van Dyke character?
And they go, huh?
Who's Dick Van Dyke? Julie Andrews? The Princess Diaries. That's the only thing.
Talk about jazz, because it's interesting. When we did a river cruise in Budapest, I didn't realize how much they love jazz. They give out American Jazz Awards. It was like, are you kidding me? American Jazz? Why? It's amazing.
Yeah, American jazz is really big. And, I mean, it took off in France. That was a place where all the black jazz musicians went, because there's no racism over there. They were treated equally. And that's why they flocked over there. Boy, I went to a clarinet convention in the 80s. And there was this very straight-laced Japanese clarinetist. He got up on stage and in very broken English, and this is going to sound somewhat racist, but it's not. He said, I play for you now, I play for you the swing. And we're all sitting there, we're going, what can this guy know? And he ripped up, he could put Benny Goodman to shame.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. And we're like, where did this come from? But it's taken off in Japan. And I recently edited a Chinese doctoral student's work on the history of cello music in China. And before I can't remember what that curtain's called now. It's all leaving my mind. But before that came down, the Western musicians that came in, the missionaries brought Western music in. And it was considered cultured to be able to play jazz, to be able to play the Western-style classical music, and just go away from the Chinese folk music of the day, to the point where the folk music was almost entirely lost during the communist era, because it wasn't good to play any of the old music. And that's when jazz really took off in the Far East. It's insane how they've grabbed onto this. The country I really would be interested to see would be Russia, because I really don't know that much about jazz music in that country. I don't hear about it. My friends who study Russian music really know nothing about jazz in that country, but they do the Chinese, the Japanese, all over Indonesia, South America. Good heavens, South America just latched onto it. And obviously, like I said, the French, the Germans, we've even got cabaret written about that. Music in Berlin, and even then, oh goodness, there's an entire sheet of rules for Nazi jazz music.
Rules?
Rules. You cannot use a string bass plucked because that pushed Jewishness in music. And I tell you, I've got a printed out list, and I flash this up on the screen for the students, and they're like, what is this? And they can read these rules for the jazz musicians. You can't have this black music, this black aesthetic creeping into your jazz music. We must have the Führer's style of jazz coming into the Musik. It's just, and then of course the resistance movement, there was underground, definitely jazz movements and all that. But yeah, it's interesting how that form of music has just exploded and again splintered from what it was when it started.
So why? What is it about jazz that's
It's complex.
Really?
It's complex. It can be easy, it can be complex. You think 12-bar blues, 3 chords, which you think about modern pop music, 3 chords, which is Guitar Hero. That's where you get it. So you can have something that easy to where I could bring a class full of kindergartners in here, give them a bunch of Orff instruments, which you can remove the bars. If you're not familiar with Orff instruments, you can remove them so they only play the right notes. And I could say, okay, play jazz, and they'll improvise. And it's totally good music. It's really pretty good. But then somewhere that gets shut down by the time the kids get into junior high and high school, and they're told, okay, solo. I don't know what notes to play. Oh my gosh, there's no music in front of me. I can't do this. So it can be incredibly complex also, which is why I think musicians really value jazz and good jazz musicians. Herbie Hancock, the entire Marcellus family. Let's just go there. They, of course, that family grew up with it. And a lot of the best jazz musicians have grown up with that. Harry Connick Jr. grew up with that music. A lot of the young ones that you see coming in now grew up with it. And we have a lot, and again, this is where YouTube, and this also gets back to where the gigs. You can find live music in more places than you think. Most of them, fortunately or not, are bars. Which again then, how you sneak in someone under the age of 21 to be able to play on stage, it's done. They just don't talk about it. I've seen people that sing 11, 12, and they're playing jazz. And again, this is how some of our greats that we know, Charlie Parker, that's how he got his start. Sneaking in, you can't sing all that. But yeah, you have to almost make your own gig. Street musicians. You talk about the scene in London. Going to Soho, Chelsea, all over the place. New York, the subways, to the point where now it's a sketch on Jimmy Fallon, where they took, the last one was Miley Cyrus and Jimmy Fallon playing in the subways. I mean, Joshua Bell, the great violinist, went down there in disguise and played Bach. Nobody knew who he was or that he was down there. They're getting this free concert. I mean, I'll admit it, I paid a lot to go see that man play live because he's great.
Where place would you like to go that you haven't been yet?
Oh, that's easy. Australia, New Zealand.
That's really?
Would love to go there.
Yeah. What's there, Julie?
Australia. I'm the biggest Anglophile ever, and that stretches to the colonies, as it were. And I would love to see the landscape, the animals there. They're so much different than anywhere else in the world. The topography, everything about that. The color of dirt, of course, you can get up in Oklahoma, but it's in Australia. And then just the variety, even into the food, the languages,
Yes.
the Aboriginal people, the difference in the music, the native music. I have ethnomusicological friends that study that, and we don't even get a chance to hit that. I teach a world music class, and we don't even get the chance to touch on that, just because there's so much else going on that's a little more, I don't want to say accessible, but within the reach of students. But yeah, I would love to go there. And the Sydney Opera House.
So what do you do when you're not doing music or theater? How do you decompress?
Oh, how do I decompress? Can I say music and theater? Probably not. Little known fact, I do put this on my theatrical resume, I juggle.
Really? Yes.
Yeah, I've done a lot of Renaissance festivals. I think this gets back into the music history part of it. I love the madrigals, the Renaissance instrumental music of that era. It was a horrible era. Let's not sugarcoat anything. The plague, please. Fleas shaking your head from the wigs, no toilets. But I'm fascinated by the clothing of that era. I'm fascinated by the language of that era, the Shakespearean language. And as an actor, I've never gotten to do Shakespeare. That's on my bucket list. I've not even done West Side Story or anything like that. That's one of the bucket list things. I've got to do Shakespeare before I totally get out of this life. I like that. I'm big into British science fiction.
British science fiction?
British science fiction. Blake's Seven. Nobody remembers Blake's Seven. Red Dwarf, some people remember. Of course, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We all have to go there. And I was latched on to Doctor Who from John Pertwee's Third Doctor forward. Don't get me started on that. I can take anything on out. And I've proven this. I have talked people into the ground on Doctor Who. To the point where now I've learned how to knit, and I'm about 30 rows away from having my own Tom Baker scarf finished. 8 feet long. It's huge. Takes up half my living room right now.
Doctor Who. We've talked about this because we do the convention circuit.
Right.
There's all different things. You mentioned Comic-Con, which is incredible if you want to see, stars of that. Are there Doctor Who conventions? There's got to be, right? There
are. The big thing right now is Comic-Con that's coming up. If you're a Whovian, if you know anything about this, Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, has filmed his final goodbyes and his regeneration. He, the last companion, whose name, the character's name is Bill. Her name escapes me at the moment. Stephen Moffat and a couple of the other characters are going to Comic-Con.
Right.
And that panel, as far as I know, is past standing room only, to where they're opening up other venues with TVs. But they do have some little ones around and about. Of course, there's the Doctor Who Experience in Cardiff, Wales, where they film. That, unfortunately, is closing, I believe, in October.
Uh-oh.
And they haven't said anything. It's like, I've got to go to Cardiff. No! Which I've been to London 3 or 4 times, and I've never made it past, I've never made it into Wales. I made it to the edge of Wales. Right. But I've never actually made it across the border into Wales, which is like, no. I've never been to Stonehenge, too. That's the other thing. You
gotta make it to Bath? Oh, my goodness.
I've been to Bath.
You've been to Bath? Yeah.
Love Bath.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. The cathedral there. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. No, I don't know of any, which, speaking of convention, that brings me to my other guilty pleasure, Supernatural.
Supernatural! Oh my goodness! Yes!
Team Castiel, all the way.
I've only started to catch that when I'm exercising. I don't know what the deal is. I'd be working out and Supernatural would be on. What is
That's hysterical. Yeah, and they've killed Cass. Although only they say they haven't killed Cass. Misha Collins won't comment either way, but they think they've let it slip that he is coming back. And he does something called Gishways, which I don't know if you've heard of Gishways. It's the greatest, I gotta get this right, greatest international scavenger hunt the world has ever seen. Gishways. And it's insane. This will be my 3rd year doing Gishways the first week of August. There are things like run the song Carry On My Wayward Son 5 times through Google Translate, sing the results in 4-part harmony. Which I've done. There's a video that exists of this. I'm sure I could fish it up somewhere. It's out there. Create a dress only of corn husks. Make a picture of one of the supernatural characters using only Skittles. Recreate Picasso in fruit roll-ups. These are actual items.
You have a time limit on this?
1 week.
One week?
1 week. You get 1 week to do it. And then there's also a service end of it. He also runs a service organization called Random Acts. They build schools in Haiti.
Yes.
Most of the time his father really helps on that. But there are things like dress up as characters from Alice in Wonderland, go to a children's hospital and host a tea party.
Yes.
Get 5 of your friends to go with you to go donate plasma.
Right.
Donate, and this is one that I did because I have a friend, an orchestra director who is at a school where the budget's got cut. And it was donate instruments or music or something to a local music program.
Right.
So I bought a piece of music that I knew she needed and went and presented it to her. That was one of the items.
Right.
So the thing I'm most proud of my team is Penguins of Doom. Yes. We always have to have a team photo. Yes. There are 15 people on a team. And the year was make yourself a kale mustache. Take a picture of yourself and send it to your team captain who will compile these. So my kale mustache went down to my waist. We'll just leave that there. And it probably stuck out about this far. Yeah, that was fun. So we'll see what happens this year. And then the winning team, which we've never even come close. But we've gotten various items into, they produce a book of this.
Right.
Our cornhusk dress got in. The Post-it notes at a bus stop. I covered, everyone in Kansas knows where this is, Allen Fieldhouse, the mecca of basketball in Kansas. There's a bus stop right outside there. Me, representing Penguins of Doom, and representatives from 3 other Gishways teams in the Lawrence area covered the bus stop with Post-it notes with positive messages on them. And it actually stayed there for 4 days before somebody realized it was there and took the Post-it notes. But that made it into the book.
Right.
It's in the coffee table book they produce. So I'll do that again, and I'm probably going to end up recruiting some of the cast members, either to be on the team or to help. It's 1 week, people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And that's another one of my guilty pleasures. And I tend to volunteer quietly around and abouts for various and sundry, like helping with the set here.
Sure,
I do that, and I really don't publicize overly much that I'm doing that. Denise let it out of the bag with all the pictures on the website. But what can you do? That's what I do to relax.
I've noticed, and I don't, maybe it's always happened, but a lot of like I said, the competitions. But it's really not really so much about the competitions. It's almost this camaraderie and this shared effort, shared experience. And it can be anything from the Elvis weekend. There'll be an entire weekend where we're commemorating Elvis, and they go back to Graceland and do this, and there's a Star Trek convention. I'm a Trekkie. Yeah, we do that. So all this kind of thing. But it's almost beyond that. It's really just the shared experience with others, because everyone has all these varied backgrounds, and usually there's always some type of social, like donation type kind of component to it. Yeah, goodwill, if you will. But what is it about this? Is this just back to the need to be part of a group, part of the shared experience? What is that you see in that?
You mean the
anything, just in general.
The experience in general?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's football and everybody's getting dressed up, and putting on war paint or whatever.
Exactly.
You're a cheesehead. You're whatever.
Yep, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
You'll be right again.
Yeah.
I think and I can speak from the musician theater end of this. If you've ever been in band or choir, you know that that's a family.
Yes.
And you know that everyone's got everyone's back.
Yes.
I have a fantastic story about that from when I was teaching. When I first got to that little school down in the edge of the Ozarks in Missouri, my timpani player, and he was very specific that he was a timpani player, was an autistic, overage young man. Best timpani player I have ever had. Very high functioning. But you could tell that he just wasn't all quite quite there. And he was 19 when I got him, and he was 21 years old when he graduated out of the high school. And the kids would joke with him, but they had his back. We went to contest. If anyone from another band or anyone else anywhere near even looked at him funny, my kids were all over them. It's like, no, he's one of us.
Right.
He's ours. Right. You can't, we can do this to him. You can't.
That's right.
And it's really, his mother came to me after he graduated, and I didn't know this. I'm going to tear up. Here we go. But came to me, he's like, my kid had just the best experience, and it was because the family was there for him. And we don't have that outside of this. No one else has really just taken him in, like this school, like this band. This is what he has. I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do now that he doesn't have this anymore. Wow. And yeah, I didn't know how much it had meant to him. And he wasn't the kind of kid that would come up and tell me. Yeah. But he did come up at graduation and shake my hand and said thank you. A lot of the kids don't do that. So that was very special, especially hearing that from his mother afterwards. But I think, just humans in general have a need to be part of something. Whether it's the band family, the theater family, choir family. You hear all about that. Part of a team in some way.
Yes.
The Gishways team, the football team, the lacrosse team. I have a lot of lacrosse players. I didn't know. We had that. But yeah, there's just this innate need to be part of something. And sometimes that outwardly manifests itself, like getting on the stage and performing, singing, marching, getting out there in front of people. Because again, applause is a heady drug.
Oh my goodness. Yes, it is.
Some of us have to have it. Yeah, I took a 12-year hiatus from performing on the stage or in pit orchestra. Otherwise known as my marriage. But I had one of those Felix Mendelssohn husbands. But no, it was just such a thing that I had to get back and do theater. And again, that gets to the thing. If you can do anything else, do it. I can't. It's not in me. And it's the family I've chosen.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the works of Richard Bach?
Nope.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got some great quotes. And one of the ones that I really like that I tend to, if I've got special students graduating, ones that have become, I've mentored along the way, I'll tend to give them Richard Bach things if they're going on into teaching. The quote that I like is, "The bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of taking the joy in each other's lives. Rarely do members of one family grow up under the same roof." Wow. That hits me. And I will share that with my bands. I used to. Sometimes I'll share it with class, especially of educators, because I know what they're going to be up against. They're not. I know they don't know yet, and they won't know until they at least student teach, and maybe not till after that, till they get their own program. But it's a bond, and it's different. And speaking as an adopted child, my sister and I were both adopted. We've known it forever. Right. And we look nothing alike. It's hysterical. So we've had to have this conversation with strangers from a very early age. I completely understand that. Your family is who you choose. Yes. It's not necessarily who you grow up with. And I think that's part of it also. Maybe not getting that close with people, but the shared experience. Yes. And some of them you will develop that bond with. Some of them you won't. Some of them you'll have a shared experience and you'll get really close with them, and when that experience goes away, you may not see them for 5 or 6 years. But then you see them again, and boom, you're right there. I have several friends like that. One of my clarinet friends who was in the SAC band stationed in Rammstein. I haven't seen her for 3 or 4 years, but she can call me on the telephone and we'll talk for 2 hours. Wow. And you're back where you were before. Yeah, it's like we saw each other yesterday. Please. So yeah, it's that kind of bond. And I don't know if it's tighter in the music and theater end of things than it is maybe in the sports end, because I really don't have that experience.
Right.
I played sports growing up. Basketball, volleyball.
Sure.
I ran track, everything. In a small town, of course, you do everything. I gave up the golf team to be Queen Agravain in the school musical. That man has not forgiven me yet, and he's a good friend of my father. Whoops. But such it is. Yeah, the acting has stayed with me longer than the golf. But yeah, I don't know if it's tighter, but I think it might be a deeper shared experience because, again, we do have to have each other's backs. There's an element of trust.
Just an element of vulnerability. That's not necessary. I'm not saying that you don't get the same shared experience playing a sport or something like that, but there, really good art, there's a vulnerability there.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there, and you can be rejected. It's going to hurt.
You don't know if you give a line to someone, if they're going to give you their line back.
Exactly, right.
You don't know when they're going to go up and not remember what comes next.
Right.
I don't know when I push a certain little man over to one side if he's going to actually remember that his line is what it is. And sometimes I'm worried about that. So yeah, but again, I do know if I can't remember something, I've got a stage full of people who are going to cover for me. They've got my back. If somebody else can't remember to say La Femme Paris or Rattleplex or Dog or Cat, I've got their back. And again, that's playing with a bunch of musicians. There's nothing shared like that in sports that I can think of. Because if one person, there's nobody that sits on the bench in music. We're all in.
Right.
And every part is important from that first chair down to the very last tuba. If you're that fourth chair tuba and you're missing notes, it's the whole group.
Wow. But
again, everybody else has your back.
There's a big difference between live music and any other body. Canned covers everything. That's all through the radio. Digitized is essentially canned music, And I remember Linda Rosa said she cannot listen to recorded music. It's not the same. It always has to be live. And there is definitely a difference. You can hear it.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
I don't have that same aversion to recordings because, again, studying historical music, sometimes that's all I got.
Right.
But there is something about live music that you can't get.
Yep.
And getting post-1950s, we come into a very interesting style of music that is all recorded. Electronic music. Yes. Edward Varese creating for the World Exposition that piece where the building was built especially for that piece. The speakers were placed.
Right.
And you really can't hear that piece of music outside of that space.
Wow.
Which almost takes you back, which was when I was in Paris doing research. The big thing, bucket list thing I had to do was I had to get to Notre Dame to the 9:30 church service because that was the Gregorian chant service. Leonin and Periton, the creators of organon, the first polyphony, we had 2-part, 3-part, 4-part music. They wrote that music for that space. Right. I needed to hear that music in the space it was written.
Wow. Yes.
And I did. And I think that's part of what Linda Ronstadt is getting at with that. There is something about the ambient things that are going on around a live performance. Yeah. We talk about that in, especially the music appreciation classes with the non-majors. We talk about how, what's different if you go to a concert, if you go to an opera, and if you go to a jazz concert, or if you go to see, let's say, Aerosmith in something like Energy Park or the Energy Center or something like that. What's different? And then I go back to, okay, in Mozart's time, you went to one of his operas, you'd be sitting out there, you'd have a picnic lunch, your chicken, your dog, your family, grandma'd come in, and you just sit there and you chat, just like this, and oh wait, my favorite artist is on, let me listen. Okay, now I'm back. That's more of that ham over there.
Not unlike going to a bar.
Yes, yes, and that was part of the experience.
Yes.
Now, when did that change? Again, we get back to Richard Wagner. Yeah. My music is such that we need to hear only my music, and nobody can go. He was the first person to turn the lights out in the concert hall. Because my music is this important. Yeah, and we lost some of that. As a performer, and again, I have this conversation with the cast every time we do theater, in any show I do. What's the audience like? Are they a live audience? We feed off the audience.
Absolutely.
I think we had this conversation.
Yes,
the audience
that's it.
gives us the energy,
Yes.
and we feed it back at them. And the more they give us, the more we can give them.
Yes.
It's so hard to perform to a dead audience because you just have to try so hard. And again, as someone who's played in bars, we actually did a piece of minimalist music in a bar in Vermillion, South Dakota. And it was a good experience because there were people coming in and out.
Sure.
We're sitting there, we're playing, and they're like, oh, this is new and different. And this is the same bar where the week before I was watching 5 of my friends do a jazz fusion gig with their band. And it was just, you can't do music like that without the experience. And modern composers are writing. And again, I'm talking in the art music. I hate using the word classical.
Right.
Because that boxes you into, 90-year time frame or something like that. But in art music, modern composers are writing pieces that involve the audience.
Yeah.
John Cage, 4 minutes and 33 seconds. It's 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. What's the music? Well, okay, then you get back to what's the definition of music?
Yeah.
Sound organized through time. It's simple. It covers everything. So when you have 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, is it silence? Okay, I can hear the blowing of the air conditioner.
Absolutely.
I can hear the rustling of papers.
Yeah. True silence is difficult.
You don't have it. I've got tinnitus, and I hear the ringing in my ears constantly.
Yeah.
Too much time in front of my band.
Yeah.
But it's just that ambient experience of what's going on around the music. And I think even in a concert hall, where you're sitting there and you're listening to a live orchestra, there's a bit of that vulnerability.
Yes.
Especially if you know the piece and you know, okay, wait, that note's coming up. Are they going to get that note?
Right.
Is it going to hit? Is he going to crack on that high tenor note in the middle of Nisidora? Are the clarinet's going to actually make it through this particular part of the Overture to Candide? And it's that shared experience again. And I guess that this is all cyclic, and I feel like I'm talking in circles, but that's the way this goes.
Yes.
Is everything interconnects with everything else. It's all part of the shared experience. And again, as human beings, I think we thrive on that. Definitely.
Yeah, once we get that hit, if you will, we're always looking for the next step. We have to try to repeat it, and you really have a difficult. I don't think it ever repeats. It'll always be different, and it may be better, whatever, but it's never the same.
It's never the same experience. You're right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us for the shared experience here at Mary Poppins. I'll see you a lot more. I'm going to ask you the question we've asked everyone else: if heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get to the pearly gates?
Oh goodness. First of all, I want him to direct me to where my horse and my dogs are. I know they're waiting for me. Sandy, Goldie, Ruffet, you're up there. Wait for me, I'll be there. Good dogs. And then the second thing is that I taught good teachers.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt at that. We can see that you're a mentor all around.
I hope so.
That's official time. Thank you for being with us. We'll hope to see you some more.
Thank you very much.